We've been fighting a long time, and we have all lost so very much, so many loved ones gone. But you are not alone. There are pockets of resistance all around the planet. We are at the brink.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is Wednesday night. It's time for another SITREP. I'm Aaron Sampson.
What's up, guys? I'm Ian Chadrick. Tonight is episode 69, and we're going to talk about spiritual warfare. We have a guest tonight, my friend Matt Howard.
What's going on, Matt?
What's going on, guys? How we doing?
Doing good. You're probably going to have to speak a little bit louder because you're kind of quiet being through your...
Oh, I'm kind of quiet. Okay. How about now? Can you hear me better now?
Yeah,
better now. Yeah.
Okay.
It's good to be back. It feels weird.
I know, man.
It feels
weird
real weird.
Doing it for a week.
Yes, it
is.
is.
And you're like, oh, it's Wednesday again.
Dude, I'll tell you what. I don't know. Mandela effect, whatever people want to say. I feel like time's speeding up, dude. It's super weird. I mean, maybe it's just a season of life, but good Lord, it's just flying by. It's craziness.
Yeah. I agree. And I thought, you've heard my whole spiel on that, but I do feel like it, it says that God basically speeds up time so that we don't, so that we don't destroy ourselves, basically. So because if he doesn't, then there won't be any flesh left. I mean, that's crazy. But I thought about that. And I don't know if we've ever talked about that before, I think, Ian, where it's like, if you figure if man works on an 8-hour workday and God, just kind of speeds the clock up, right? And so what we would normally get done in an 8-hour day takes 6 hours to do. It would literally delay every single day the completion of the work by 2 hours. And that adds up over time. So, I mean, it's possible if he's the one that's in control of, the reality of here, all he's got to do, we base all of our time off of the ticking of atoms and the sun, moon, and stars, and he's in control of all that. So, it's possible, but it does seem like it. It seems like time, like something that would take me normally, 15 minutes to do now takes, 45 minutes or half an hour.
Maybe his clock is the same, and it's like Elon Musk's and Bill Gates' artificial sun and all that stuff that's kind of in front of God's and kind of tricking us, and now our bodies are all messed up.
No, they're going to mess our bodies up through everything else. Did you hear that? And I didn't realize this until here recently. Did you hear that? Bill Gates owns like the majority of the crop land in the United States.
The farmland.
Yeah, man. So
yeah. Well, what's interesting about that is I don't even look at that stuff anymore as like being negative, because you think about the verse that says God will restore all the years the locust ate, and the wealth of the wicked will be turned over to the righteous. So let him buy all the farmland, right? And then, when justice happens, it gets flipped over to us, right? I mean, these are kind of things like, I don't know. It's just when you change your perspective, everything because, I feel like there's a big percent of conspiracy theorists. They're right about a lot of stuff, but they're really good at looking at the devil. Nobody's very good at looking at what God is doing, because that would be, prophetic. So they don't do that. But that's kind of like that's what the border is. It's like in every situation, do you want to believe what God says or what you see, right? Because faith is what you don't see, right? That's I don't know. I'm trying to challenge myself to every time I think like, oh no, because it happens like every day. I think of something else, or I find something like that kind of information, and you're like, oh crap. But where's the silver lining? How do you see, how can you see the good in this? Because it doesn't really matter. It's all, Revelation 18, right? Is it 1818 or 1717?
17. Yep.
Yeah, 1717. Right. So it is what it is, man. We're
Well,
all going to be fine.
chat's starting to fire up here. It's good to see you guys in here. We got Sim Coder, Arc Builders. My mom's in here. She says, "Hey, Matt," in the chat. Karen C, how's it going? Yeah, so seeing everybody. If you guys are over on Facebook and you guys want to join the live chat, make sure you jump over to YouTube. Go to the Holy Hand Grenade YouTube channel, and it's a little bit more active than the Facebook chat. So
Hey, let's do announcements right now.
Yeah,
We're waiting on people to get in here and everything. So, do you want to talk about Take on the World?
Yeah. So, Take on the World. Make sure you guys are checking that out. It's totwconference.com, because I know the tickets and stuff. They're filling out fast, and so is the lodging and stuff there. But there is a big campsite, and there's RV parking and all kinds of stuff. So the lineup's looking pretty good though, and there's quite a few big names that are going to be there, and quite a few regulars. So, our TOTW brothers and stuff will be there at some point. But yeah, we've got some cool things coming up for that. We're really excited to speak there, and we did it last year as the virtual thing, and I don't know. Have you ever spoken in front of 200 or 300 people, Ian?
You won't speak in front of 200 or 300. No one will show up.
They're talking like they're going to put us on the main stage. Like, you know.
Hey, it'd be cool. It'd be cool, but I don't know what we're going to talk about.
We'll figure something out.
You know what? If you come to ours, you're going to get delivered. We'll just say that.
If they got a pool.
You might not want to show up. You might not want to show up to ours.
We'll stop right in the middle and pray for you.
That's what the whole thing's going to be about, right? Getting free from that spirit of religion.
Yeah. So, and then there's the Go Therefore conference. Are you still planning on going to that? Because I know I just took the days off for it. So
yeah, I'm planning on going.
Okay.
So
we're not speaking there or anything, but we'll be there.
No,
we'll do whatever God calls us to.
It's gonna be. There's some powerhouses, bro. Jamie Walden's there. Michael Lake.
Yeah.
Mike Spalding. Dude, there's so many people that are going to be there this time. So the last time we went earlier this year, wasn't it? Was it earlier this year? Springtime or something?
Yeah, the first.
There was like 12 speakers or something. Now there's like 20. So there's a lot. It's only a couple days, I think, too. So yeah, thanks, Karen. She says I'll have no trouble talking. Yeah.
No, you can. Yeah, just set up a little campfire and Ian will talk for 6 hours straight.
Oh yeah. It just depends. It depends on what God's doing in my head that day, because sometimes I'm very passionately attached to my thoughts. Some days.
Do we want to talk about the Safrancos?
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, they just popped in the chat.
There they are.
What's going on, Robert and Cindy? We're gonna post a link. It'll probably be in the description for this. But our friends are weekly. They join us in the live chat every week. It's Robert and Cindy Safranco. They have been going through a process to adopt a young girl from Ukraine. Was that correct?
I believe so.
Yeah. So they've been trying to go through that process, and they said the process is speeding up, but it is a very expensive thing to do. And so they have partnered with a ministry, and let me say it. I can pull it up here. But they're doing some.
Hey, you could probably put the link right there in the chat.
Yeah.
Too. You keep it in. You keep it in the description, but you should be able to put it in there.
But they teamed up with it was a Connected Hearts Ministry, and it's just to raise money to go towards the process of getting this young girl out of. If you guys don't know what's going on in Ukraine, there's a lot of craziness happening there, and they spent a lot of time in communication with her and this whole process. And we've been kind of praying for them. So keep them in your prayers. If you can't financially support the situation, that God will pull through for it. But if you can, if you feel led to. I will grab this and post it in the live chat, and then I'll also link it on the account. But yeah, yes, Ukraine. Robert and Cindy just said so. So yeah, guys, we love and appreciate them. We got to hang out with them actually at the last Go Therefore conference, and they're amazing people. And this is something that's really been on their heart. And we're not talking about like a 6 or 8 year old girl. This is she's getting into her teens, so this is a pivotal time for young women in Ukraine, where if they don't have somebody to take care of them, there's only a few options for them. And, you know, it's scary options. And this is something that they really feel led to bring her over here and you know, set her on the right path. So, you know, we're really adamant about, you know, them in this situation. So just wanted to put that up there. And then anything else you wanted to add in before we poor Matt's down here, he's ready to talk.
No. Well, hey, let's introduce Matt Howard. So Matt and I met at work. His work and my work were the same at the same time one day. This was like, I don't know, I'm just going to say 5 years ago, because I don't know exactly, but it had to be like 5 years ago. We were both listening, so we both got to talking to each other, and I don't know how, but do you remember how?
I don't know. I think I overheard you talking to somebody else about flat Earth, and I was like, no way. So like, I think that was like the icebreaker to where I was like, what do you know? Because it was all kind of new to me at that point too.
Okay. Yeah. I wouldn't even have thought it was that at the time. I mean, I would thought it was like giants or something, but okay. Flat Earth. Okay. So yeah, I remember we both started talking, and we found out that well, obviously we're both into the flat Earth thing, and then, or the biblical cosmology, we'll say that, right? We won't say flat Earth, but we were listening to Now You See TV. We were listening to Celebrate Truth. What was some of the other ones we were listening to?
Face Like the Sun.
Face Like the Sun.
I think I was starting to watch some of Rob Skiba's stuff too at that time.
Yeah, it was just pretty cool because we were like, wow, this is going to be fun. We'll be able to talk about stuff. But I think then your schedule got changed, and we kind of didn't see each other very much because I was super early and you were going to mid shift or something like that, right?
Oh.
And then I changed routes, so I was at different stores. But we ran into each other yesterday, and also Aaron, tell the story about how you and Matt connected a little bit there.
Oh yeah. So of course, this is, you know, this stuff doesn't happen. Like there's only divine intervention that can make things happen like this. Just like we had a guy that was seeking for deliverance through Isaiah Salvador's page, and he reached out to Ian, and Ian was in Dayton, was the closest one on the map. And he's like, I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana. I need deliverance. I'll come to you. And he's like, dude, my co-host for my show is in Indianapolis, Indiana. And he was like 15 minutes away. So it's things like that. But my mom actually came across, I guess you guys became friends, or somebody sent her one of your videos. And
he posted the video in SITREP, in Resistance.
Was that what it was? Something like that. Yeah. And my mom really, really liked it, and she sent it over to me. And I was like, oh, this guy's, he's really good. And I went and looked you up on Facebook, and I was like, oh, we're already friends. So, and then she's like, yeah, I messaged him and I was talking to him, and he knew Ian because they used to work on the same thing. So I'm like, man, this is crazy. You know, we're 200 miles away, but you know, God doesn't, time and space is irrelevant to him. He'll put some things together. So it's awesome.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So go ahead, Ian.
I was just going to say, so tell us a little bit about yourself, Matt. How did you, what's your story?
Man, well, first of all, I just want to say that God has been extremely patient and merciful with me, because when I was 19 years old, now that I look back and I know what I know now, that was the beginning of like God actually saying, come here, you belong to me now. Get out of the world, come to me. And from age 19 all the way till I was 29 years old, I kept jumping in and out of the world, in and out of the world. And I actually, I went through multiple different phases looking for the truth. I went through I investigated Islam. I investigated the New Age, Wicca, the occult, like all of this stuff. And sadly, the last place that I looked was the Bible. That was the last place I looked. And I was kind of pushed into it by divine intervention, so to speak. So God was just merciful to me and patient with me for almost 11 years, calling me. And I just stubbornly didn't listen until finally, biblical cosmology played a pivotal piece in that. And the spirit realm, and finding out that what we were referring to as aliens actually being like fallen angels and demonic beings, that was a pivotal piece. So I guess I can start right there. So would you like to hear kind of what happened when I was 19 years old that kind of like started to snowball the whole thing, maybe?
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So I was a secular musician. I played in a punk band. I had a small recording studio, and I was in my little homemade recording studio, and I was recording some music, and it was just me up there working on some tracks by myself. And I'm standing there with my guitar in my hand, and all of a sudden I'm frozen. I can't move. I'm standing up with the guitar, and something like freezes me. I have no control over it. I can't move. And then it feels like a flash drive is inserted into my brain. Okay. And then like all of these memories and visions just start snowballing through my mind, showing me things that I'd done in my past, and where I was going to be heading if I didn't like turn around and stop now. And made me have a panic attack. And when I was able to move and to get free from this, I ran downstairs to the living room, and, I'm like, well, I'll just watch the TV to calm down. I didn't know what else to do. I was a 19-year-old kid, no spiritual background, nobody to show me anything. So I turn on the TV, and all I know in my life is music. So I go to like a music channel, and there's a Slipknot music video on, and it's got like goat heads and blood and 666 and all of this stuff in it. Freaks me out. Just furthers that panic attack even further. So then I hear this like a small calming voice trying to talk to me about God, and how there's a great war for souls, and how I'm a part of that war, and I better be ready. And I'm like, well, what does this even mean? So having no spiritual experience or background in anything, I'm like, okay, so if this has to do with God, so I flipped to like TBN, okay? So I flipped to like TBN, and there's the 700 club's on, and it's like 2:00 in the morning or something. I don't know. But the 700 Club made me feel the exact same way that the Slipknot music video made me feel. And looking back on it, I'm just like, wow, we're looking at two sides of the same coin. Like Satan, masquerades in two different ways. So, but I didn't understand that. So I turn off the TV, I run outside, I sit on my porch. The only thing that ended up calming me down was I looked at a tree, and I was kind of like praying, but didn't realize that I was actually praying, because I'd never really said a prayer. But I was just like, God, please make this stop. What is this? Why is this happening? But so that made me realize that there was something going on outside of our five sense reality, and that there was something more to existence than just what we see. But I didn't know what it was. So I didn't have anything happen for about a year after that. And then I had another experience to where same thing happened. I froze where I was at, couldn't move. But this time there was an entity like out of the corner of my eye. And this thing took the shape of what looked like a giant black panther. And I couldn't move, but I could move my eyes. and I could see it sitting there on the floor, and I'm like stuck. But I tell myself, like, this is your mind playing tricks on you, from all the times that you smoked all of that weed when you were younger. You've really messed yourself up, bro. You've really messed yourself up. But then this thing starts talking to me. It starts talking to me, not like we're talking, but like telepathy, like mind linking. I can hear it talking, but it's like, not physically speaking. And this is so weird. It says, I'm real. I'm not just a figment of your imagination. We come in the forms of ridiculous things that you see out of the corner of your eyes, so that way you don't pay attention to us. But we've been here since the beginning, and we've always been watching people. And I had a friend sitting in my bedroom waiting for me to come back in with coffee. And I went back in there without coffee. But before I went in there, this thing says, now go tell the other one. And as I'm walking to the bedroom, I have no control over my body. It's like I'm in a trance or something. And it's like a mathematical pattern has control of me. And when I get to the door, and I touch the doorknob, everything comes back and I'm like in control again. And I just like burst into tears. And this guy's like, what's wrong with you, dude? What happened? I'm like, I don't know if I can tell you about it, man. I think I'm losing my mind. So, because the first thing I thought of was like, dude, you heard a voice talking to you. Schizophrenic people hear voices talking to them.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're like 20 years old and you're losing your mind. So this was a big deal to me. So I go to my mom and I'm like, hey, Mom, I've had these like couple of weird experiences. I don't know what they are. I think I might be losing my mind. I told her about the thing in the kitchen and how I heard a voice. And I was like, Mom, that sounds like schizophrenia. And I was like, I don't know if I should go and get looked at and find out what's going on. And, God bless my mom's heart. She wasn't like, yeah, you're crazy. You need to go somewhere. She was like, think about it for a week or so, and then let me know what you want to do. And I'll support you no matter what you decide to do. So I'm like, okay. So then I go and I sit and I'm thinking about it. And that same voice that I heard coming from this entity says to me, don't go to the doctor. Don't go to the doctor because they're going to put you on medication and they will shut you down. And no clue what that meant. But I was just like, you know what? You have a job. You function in society. You're not hurting anybody. Just roll with it until this thing tells you to burn down a house or do something crazy. You need to go get help. All right. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to roll with this. So after that, I kind of just go back to sleep and just go back down into the world. But every now and again, I would just kind of have these little divine moments that would make me realize that there's something more going on outside of the five sense realm. And just to kind of move this along quicker, I kind of got into the conspiracy theories and things from, what was that movie called? It's a terrible, terrible movie. Zeitgeist. So I got caught up in the Zeitgeist movement for a minute. And that, the beginning, have you guys seen that thing?
Yeah, but tell people like a roughly, what is that about? Because some people might not know what it is.
Okay. So Zeitgeist in the beginning tries to break down religion, in particular Jesus Christ, as if he is a carbon copy ripoff of like every pagan deity that came before him. And if you set out to debunk that, it's not really hard to debunk it, but we all know how people are. People tend to be lazy. and they don't like to search things out for themselves a lot of times. So like I bought it hook, line, and sinker. I'm like a 22, 23-year-old guy, and I'm just like, wow, there is no God, there is no Jesus. And I'm just like, but you've seen all these things, so something has to exist. And so that's how I get caught up into like the New Age movement. So I get kind of caught up in like the New Age mixed with like the Bhagavad Gita and then Wicca. And believe it or not, even like some of the stuff from Islam kind of made sense to me. In particular, like they're talking about jinns and their different entities and deities and stuff. So that kind of got meshed into it. So I was just this train wreck mess of like all kinds of different, you know, false religions, so to speak, just like meshed into one. And then from that, uh, a friend who believed similar to what I believed in, he somehow came in contact with like a Tibetan monk that had come back to the United States. And this guy had like a stack of like New Age spiritual books with like different occult things and meditations and rituals and that type of stuff. And so he gives him these books. And then we start reading these books. And then we start combining what's going on in these books with like mushrooms and marijuana and things like that. So we're doing all of these like meditations and all of these things mixed in with psychedelics, with pharmakia. So basically we were like head deep into sorcery, basically, is my take on it. But I was ignorant. I was ignorant to it. I had no idea that that's what I was doing. So we started doing these meditations and stuff. And that's when we started being able to kind of like, I don't know if you want to call it astral projecting or what, but we were like leaving our bodies and we were coming in contact with these other entities. The first one that I ever came in contact with was and this should have been a red flag for me, but you know, at this point, I'm still bamboozled into thinking that Christianity is a ripoff of all of these pagan religions, thanks to Zeitgeist. So I just want to pause my story right there and let anybody who's never seen Zeitgeist, like, if you ever come across anybody who tells you that they've watched that and they don't believe in Christ because of Zeitgeist, help them, because that's dangerous. That is so dangerous. But anyways, this first entity that I came in contact with, it was a huge, it had to be 12 or 13 feet tall, huge, dressed in all black, couldn't see its face, had a hood over its head. And before it came, that same voice that came from that Black Panther entity from prior, says to me, he says, and I'm in like this black space. There's nothing there, but just miles of blackness.
Have you seen Stranger Things? Oh man, I would be really interested if you watch Stranger Things. That show is I think that show is like, it's really crazy because it's like, I mean, dead on, dead on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and she meets people that look like that, and she, you know, does different things. Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, because this realm exists, and they'll tell you that in Hollywood. They'll make it out as fiction, of course, but I mean, this is real stuff. It happens. But this voice is telling me, it keeps saying, he's coming, and when he gets here, you cannot let him know that you're afraid of him. And so I'm like, well, what does that even mean? So then this giant, huge black entity shows up, stands over me. It's okay, you're good. And he asked me, he says, and it's all telepathic, no verbal language. And it says to me, it asked me that question. It says, are you afraid of me? And I was like terrified. Okay. But I lied to it. And I said no, because I was told to say no from this other voice. So then he opens up his hand, and this great big white light is inside of its hand, and it just starts spreading out and spreading out. And all of that blackness starts going away. And like green grassy hills appear, and like a beautiful blue sky. And there's a little boy walking with an axe in his hand towards a tree to chop it down. And then that menacing entity that's standing over me tells me this story about George Washington. And it was so weird, you guys. But he says, this is George Washington as a child, and he's on his way to chop down the cherry tree. Later on, as an adult, he will do many corrupt things in his life and will not realize that he had become a corrupt man. Remember, Matt Howard, a good man can become corrupt without knowing he has become corrupt. And that blew my mind. And then, poof, I was right back down in the room that I was sitting in. And I was sitting there, and I was just thinking to myself, like, wow, I've never really thought about it, but maybe I'm not a good person. And that was kind of like the beginning of starting to like soul search, I guess. But there were multiple times that we did this and came in contact with like multiple different entities. I'll just tell you about like the 2 or 3 that are really just, and this is how I started to realize that aliens were demons and that what the Bible was talking about was true. So that's the point of like going through this. But the second one was a giant, and notice how all of them are giants. And then we like think about like the Nephilim. So like all of these spirits appeared to me in like a giant form. They were all huge. The second one from another experience was a giant blue glowing being that I was only allowed to see from the neck down. Like I couldn't see his face.
Hey, are you familiar with the David Wilcock and Corey Good and the Blue Avians?
No, but this is what kind of made me start investigating Islam, because then I found out like the jinn and the genie and all of these blue people like kind of came out of that. And I was like, so this thing basically told me that I was not worthy to see its face, and to me, I look back at that and I'm like, wow, that's like really a smack in the face of God, because it's like posing as a God telling me I'm not worthy to like see its face, when you look at how people weren't directly able to look at God in the Old Testament,
Uh-huh.
But this blue guy has 2 golden cups in his hands. And I should probably tell you that this guy is in a room that's a black and white checkered floor. He's got 2 white pillars beside him, and he's sitting atop of an uncapped pyramid. He is basically the capstone of this pyramid.
Why does that sound familiar?
Right? And he's got these 2 gold cups in his hand, and there's like the most cleanest, purest, most beautiful water I've ever seen in my life coming out of these cups. And he tells me to come and take a drink out of these cups, and I start coming towards it. And that same voice that, talked to me all throughout all these other experiences says, stop right there. Don't go any further. Don't you dare take one of those cups and drink from it, because then you will be indebted to him and he will own you, and you don't need to go any further. So I stopped. And when that voice told me not to go any closer and not to drink from those cups, this blue entity, it got really angry and just like disappeared. So I feel like if I would have drank from that cup, I would have entered some sort of covenant with this demonic entity, and probably gave it some sort of stronghold on me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that voice saying, don't you go any further, was the Holy Spirit trying to like nudge me away from the direction I'm going in. So the final thing I'll tell you about that like leads me into scripture is so we also discovered too that we could sit in the backyard and look up at the stars, and get like a particular star to kind of like zone in on what they call your third eye. And then there's like this magnetic hole in your forehead, and then poof, you like blast off. And we used to call this star fishing, is what we would call it, because we were just dumb kids in our early 20s messing with stuff, and we had no idea what it was, man. So we're out there starfishing one night, and I had one like pulsating, and I looked over at my friends and I was like, I got a live one, boys. I'm about to blast off. And like, I was off and running. And we did this like so many times. And we all kind of basically had the same experiences when we would do this. We would see, the flaming wheels, like Ezekiel's wheels, the flaming chariots and stuff like that.
Yeah, they're called Ophanum.
Yeah, we seen those. And there was actually a guy that was with us that was just drunk. He wasn't tripping like we were, and the drunk guy seen it too. And after it came through there, like a bunch of aircraft started swarming that area where that thing was at. And we kind of freaked out, and we went in the house. And the next day, the police came to my house and asked me about suspicious night activity. And I was just like, we just set out in the yard and hang out. I wasn't going to tell them like, yeah, we're blasting off. We're talking to the
I got a whole bag of mushrooms back here.
Right. So and I forgot to tell you guys that each time I had one of these experiences, I would log it down in a notebook. And then I would go and I would look on the internet for information about what I saw. Because I was like, I'm not smart enough to make anything up like this. Like, this is just way beyond me. So what does other people say? What is this? Yeah. And it's a good thing I started doing that, because this last experience like led me to research, because I had a direct moment to where I come in contact with a serpent, an actual serpent. And we're in the backyard. We're doing the same thing that we do every weekend. And I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I see like a bright gold light in the sky. And then like all the colors of the color spectrum start coming off of this thing. So when I'm looking at this, I look over at my friends that are with me, and they're not paying any attention to it. And I'm just like, whoa, I guess you're the only one who sees this. So I was like, well, just go with it. And then that same voice that had kept me from getting in trouble with all of these other entities and pulled me out of harm's way every time, it asked me if I can see this. And I'm like, yeah, I can see it. And for some reason, it starts like celebrating and rejoicing that I can see this gold light and all of these colors and this rainbow coming off of this thing. And so here's where it gets crazy, you guys. This is
what? This is where it gets crazy?
Like, yeah, for me. Okay, so I'm sitting there and I'm looking at this, whatever it is going on in the sky. And next door in the neighbor's yard, which is completely shadowed by a tree, I see what looks like a giant serpent go slithering through the yard. It's like a black, giant, transparent snake. And I watch it just through that yard. And when that happens, and I'm gonna, is it all right if I say a mild swear word?
Oh, because yeah, this is a late night show.
Okay. So anyways, when that serpent entity goes through that yard, that voice, that same voice that was rejoicing, says to me, that's the serpent. Pay no attention to him, because he's come here to piss on this moment. And the second that this voice says that he's come to piss on this moment, a drunk guy walked out of the house next door, staggered around on his porch, and like started like peeing off of his porch. And I'm like, what is going on? And so I was just like, what is going on? And then all of that stuff in the sky started fading and going away. And I was distracted by like the serpent. going through the yard, and then that voice saying, "This is a serpent, and he's come to piss on your moment." And then here comes this dude, and he comes out of his house and pees off of his porch. So like, I go back in the house and I start writing stuff down, and I start researching like the serpent. And lo and behold, the first thing that comes up was like the Genesis, the fall, and the beginning of Genesis. And I was like, wow. So then I went out and I bought a Bible, but it collects dust for a few years. Okay. But I'm getting there.
Take your time, bro. We got a long time, so you're good.
So I finally get a Bible, but I'm still like stuck on this new age stuff. I'm still like caught up in like the alien deception. And what really hooked me into that was I'm like, going out in my yard and blasting off with whatever's going on up in the sky with the stars. So I'm totally buying into the fact that there could be like multiple universes, different planets with life on it, and that they're extra dimensional and extraterrestrial and whatever else they could be. It never crossed my mind that they were like terrestrial and like all right here living under the same roof as us. So at this point I'm like, okay, so I seen a serpent like the Bible talked about, and I kind of made a connection with the guy coming off the porch about how Lucifer or Satan can use people to achieve a means without those people knowing that they're being used to disrupt something. I was just like, and that was pretty profound for me to come to that conclusion when I still didn't really, fully believe in the God of the Bible or Jesus Christ yet. But I'm starting to believe that there's a Satan, because I've seen this serpent, and then I'm seeing the connection in different religions about this serpent. So I just kind of go back to sleep into the world for a couple of years, start playing in a band again. Nothing really going on. Then I have my son, and after my son's born, just something in my heart's like, you gotta get away from playing music. Not like playing music, but like you can't be out in a bar playing music, getting drunk, getting trashed. Like, you can't do that anymore. So I got a real job and I quit doing that. And it was Walmart. It was at Walmart where I'm at right now. So I've been there for 6 years. So I've only been in Christ for probably 5.5 years now. But like, thank God he makes up for wasted time, man. Because
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, for real. He really made up for a lot of wasted time, because I like progressed. He gave me so much like really quick that I've met people that have been in church for years and years and years, and you talk to them about binding and loosing, and they're like, I don't know what that is. What are you talking about? We skip over that because we don't understand that. We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I'm really thankful that he's allowed so much. So I'm not satisfied with the answers that I have. So I'm coming home after I get off work on third shift, and I'm researching and researching and researching. And finally, I run into some things about aliens and demons being one and the same. And after I investigated it for a while, I'm like, yeah, I totally see how that's a thing. And what sealed the deal for me was seeing that Aleister Crowley had channeled beings that were similar looking to what the gray alien. Mm-hmm. And I was like, so if Crowley's in contact with things like this, I do believe that we're talking about demonic entities. So now I'm
Yeah.
at a point.
John D saw some. Aleister Crowley saw some. There's been a lot of people that see the big-headed.
The original idea for Yoda
Lam.
came from
Yoda.
Yeah, it came from a. He was a 33rd degree Mason, something like that, and
It was Eliphas Levi.
Yeah, Eliphas Levi. Yeah. He summoned that being. So, yeah, it's pretty common. I always find it crazy because I've talked to a lot of people that take DMT or Jesus mushrooms and things like that, and they all seem to have these similar experiences where they meet this entity on this plane, and it says that they're the God or creator of all things. It's like this whole. It's almost, I don't know. I mean, I did drugs and stuff back in my 20s, and it's like there was only one instance where me and a buddy of mine had a trip, and it was a spiritual thing, same kind of thing. We saw like a tattoo on this girl's back, like turn into a serpent and start slithering around. Her tattoos were all raised up. It was weird, but most people don't share, 99.9% of the time, people don't share the same trip. It's a weird experience, and it shows that there's more going on than what's, what we think it is. It's, it's opening up something. It's a veil that's being lifted that we don't normally see, something maybe we lost in the garden. But, I think it's why I have met a lot of people in the same position that you were that had an actual spiritual experience, a legit spiritual experience through doing it. Now, I'm not condoning using these things because especially if you have, generational, or familiar spirits, they're going to be the ones that you're in contact with. But in the same instance, though, God, when your eyes are finally open, God can use that kind of situation if he's trying to get your attention. But that's probably a few and far between experience from what I understand from most people.
Right. I was really lucky.
Tony Stover had some out of body stuff too.
Yeah. Some
crazy trips. And he got some revelations as well. In Simcoder in the chat, he says, there's a lot in your testimony that's pretty awesome. And he said you would have loved David Flynn. Have you ever heard of David Flynn?
I've heard the name, but I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, you should look up David Flynn. He's pretty cool. I know he inspired like Skiba and a bunch of the guys that we already like, but he passed away. I don't know, quite a while ago, but still, he has some really fringe stuff that was pretty amazing at the time. It's still pretty awesome now, but you check him out. He has a brother too. What's David Flynn's brother's name? Anybody want to put that in the chat? David and Mark Flynn. I think it's Mark Flynn. Yeah, both of those guys.
No,
really cool.
I will check them out. Another thing that happened on these experiences with like the mushrooms, and I guess I should have brought this up earlier, was these entities also like to really push the idea of reincarnation, because they really tried to push that at me, and they did a pretty good job of convincing me of that for a while. And actually, when I came to Christ and I was ready to accept it, that was one of the things that I prayed about. I was like, I don't understand how that doesn't work. Can you please show me how that doesn't work? And of course, God did. He revealed it to me. And I was like, okay, awesome. But these things, they wanted that Jesus was just a prophet and a wise teacher and a high master, and what are some of the other things? All the reincarnation. So they went out of their way to make sure that they specifically talked about how Jesus was no different from them. And they really pushed reincarnation. Like they took me through this experience where they made it seem like I was moving through like a root system, through a body of water, up a tree, through like branches on the tree, and then up to the top of the tree, there was a bird, and it just was telling me this nonsense, like you've progressed from like from a plant to a tree to a bird, and this and that, and your soul has lived multiple times. And so they are so sneaky and deceptive.
Yeah. Well, that plays into the when you get into people that are disassociated from satanic ritual abuse and things like that, the regressive memories and repressed memories and stuff, they try to that's the narrative too, like you're having memories of past lives or alternate stuff that you'd lived, and you're regressing, and
I
these
always,
your actual, what is it that you have to understand who you were, type of thing, to get to where you need to be, so you're like spending all this time self-reflecting, trying to understand your past lives. And
I think
it's just,
it's another tool, a demonic tool, because you got to figure these demons have been around, since pre-flood, and so how many people have they leached off of in those hundreds of thousands of years. They know their stories, they know their experiences. When we've talked to people about familiar spirits and things like that, it's like when your grandma passes away and you go to a medium to talk to them, you're not reaching out to your grandma. She's in peace and paradise or whatever, but she may have had a familiar spirit or a generational spirit that was with her entire life, and she could probably tell you your favorite color or what the keys are, what the combination is to the lock to the safe, because it was there with her. So you're not talking to grandma, you're talking to grandma's demon, So,
absolutely, that's it. And see, like all of these people that think that like somebody who says, oh, I was a woman that died in a car crash in 1954. No, you have a demon that was latched onto a woman that died in a car crash in 1964, 54. That's like living in you now.
I'll tell you,
you're in this new house.
Have you looked into the organ transplant and blood transplant thing? That, because it says the life is in the blood in the Bible. There are people, there's stories, a plethora of stories. You can probably still find them, on YouTube and stuff, of people who had experiences when they had a heart transplant or organ transplants, and they started having memories of the person who it came from. And again, that could tie to this, or there could be memory inside of the blood. But it's a very weird experience. But that all ties into this stuff. And we're talking generational. The more I study and have a big thing on genetics in the Bible, and the more and more I study about it, the more and more I find that the whole biblical thing is about lineage, is about birth, is about generations. God does things, through generations. Sometimes your generation screws up, like in, in Exodus, and he has to wait for the next generation. But it's awesome to see. But I mean, just going through this and realizing like the blessings and the curses aspect of things. We talk about this a lot on the show, but there's so much tied to this, and just to think like, well, that's so-and-so, my family member, or I got this regression or whatever. There are so many other forces at play here, that can be,
or they tell you your past life is coming back to warn you, stuff like that. Like, oh, it's me from, whenever, trying to warn myself so I don't make the same mistakes. It's like, but like you said before, when you have no knowledge of anything biblical, the whole zeitgeist thing. I mean, the zeitgeist thing was huge when it came out, and it still kind of pops up when you're on Netflix or Amazon.
Oh, there was a new version of it that they came out with. It's not zeitgeist. It was another group that kind of did the same thing. The whole idea is just to beat Jesus down. The character of Jesus is a made up figure.
Well, or your Jesus, right? The whole Gnostic gospel. Like when you finally realize who you are, you are the Christ. You're the one you've been waiting for. Crap. All that really sucks. That'd be like a huge letdown for me. I don't know about you guys, but I'm
follow me as I follow myself.
I'm the guy I've been waiting on. This sucks. Like I'm screwed, It's but some people are like really into that. They're the one they've been waiting on. It's like whatever, man.
Well, I find it really, really interesting. Like this scenario, I've heard from many other people. I don't know where you're at on your age now, but there's a lot of stuff I can relate to you on your walk. But my wife is quite a few years younger than me, and she was in the same kind of thing. She tried to compile, because we all have this God-sized hole, and we're trying to fill it with whatever we can. Right. And if you're not actively looking for it, the world is constantly feeding you with this idea of what religion should be. And it is this mixture of Hinduism, Buddhism, Wiccan, and you just kind of take and piece together your own kind of piecemeal religion. Right. And it ends up being the exact same thing that Aleister Crowley taught. It's this kind of do what thou wilt mentality. Right. And that's kind of what you build your religious actions towards this made up thing. So I do find that really interesting that you're probably about the 10th person that I have spoke to recently that has had that same kind of experience where you know, and this is one of the, to all you parents out there, you know, when I talk to my wife's mother, I love her to death, but she said, well, I didn't want to push anything on my kids. I figured I'd let them figure it out. And the problem is, if you're not teaching them, the world is teaching them, and what they're going to teach them, even if they're not, you know, actively going to a Buddhist temple or Islam or whatever, they're going to pick this stuff up through the media, through music, through, you know, friends and stuff like that, is all going to be an inspirational environment. So, you know, that's something to watch out for, because if you're not actively teaching your children this stuff, then the world is.
Right. I was just thinking, when we were talking about being ignorant of these things, I was just thinking about, my people are destroyed from a lack of knowledge. And that's like, so how it is with a lot of people. They're tormented and destroyed and taken over by demons because of a lack of knowledge. You know, when I was 15 years old, backtracking a little bit, I used to go with my mom to a lady that would do like card readings and stuff. So like when I went through deliverance, I don't know, it was last summer, that was one of the first things I brought up. I was like, dude, I messed with the occult. I've had my cards read. I've played with Ouija boards. I've been in like abandoned houses, taken pictures, ghost hunting. I've done all of this stuff that like I have no business doing. And then the drug use, I even dabbled with like, you know, like the Wiccan and occult witchcraft rituals and stuff, knowing that that was actually dangerous and that I was opening up a doorway to things. But so when I finally get to a point to where I'm 99% sure that aliens are actually demons, and that what I saw with the serpent ties into the Bible. So I'm coming home and researching this stuff all the time. And don't ask me how I got there, because I don't know. But I stumbled upon, I want to say it was like Mark Sargent's Flat Earth Clues.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that like dropped me to my knees, and I like cried like a baby and just like buried my face on the floor for like a good 5 minutes. And I was like, the world is set up just the way it says in my Bible, just the way it says in the beginning in Genesis. It is made just like that. And so that was it. And that was probably, that was 2015. It was the fall of 2015. So September, October, somewhere around there. Like that was like the pivotal piece on top of aliens being demons. And so then when I found out it was an enclosed system, I was like, well, that makes perfect sense as to how these aliens could actually be demons. They're like right here. They're right here. They've been here the whole time. And after that, I started taking my scripture reading really serious, like really, really serious. But I didn't know where to begin, because, you know, like nobody told me where to start in my Bible. I didn't even start in the New Testament. Like the first book I read was First Samuel. Like
You're getting deep in there with First Samuel, man. Phew.
Yeah.
Well, hey,
we're coming up to the top of the hour here real quick. I want to come back on the other side and talk about after your deliverance and going into where God's got you now. Okay. So we got a short break, and we're gonna change over to our commercial. We've added a new commercial, guys, and we'll come back and talk to it after that. But guys, hang around. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Well, you know, obviously there's things that I don't feel led to share on a camera and have go out, because most people just wouldn't understand at least my willingness to be open about it. But I've suffered things that make me almost cry thinking about it.
Just can't believe you froze up.
I grew up in Houston, Texas, and I'm raised and born in Houston, Texas. You know, I'm born from a rapist. I don't know what should I say that.
Whether you are black or white or rich or poor, born or pre-born, all of us matter, all have value.
Why are we seeing such an explosion, literally, of occultism in the last 50, 60 years? Because we're hastening to the time of the return of Jesus Christ.
We have been so dumbed down in our theology. We don't recognize evil when we see it anymore.
And I'm about to turn off a light, and I look down, I can see a black figure crawling on the ceiling.
You know, I have a black demon that's ripping out my heart, that's shoving a poke down into another demon's mouth on my thigh. I have Medusa from the gates of hell on my back. I have a Baphomet on my throat.
I gotta go all the way back around, so stay on the line, okay?
I should have died. I don't know how I was still alive.
Oh, this guy just had a gun, just ready to just shot at us.
My name is Jessa, and I'm a survivor of human trafficking.
Every year, 1.2 million voices are silenced through child trafficking.
It was taking place in suburban neighborhoods. I was also taken into a few other countries for the sole purpose of being trafficked and being sold.
Every year, $150 billion is spent muffling the song of youth in over 1 million young hearts.
So when I was a little girl, my family was part of a group of people that severely sexually abused me.
Let the children come unto me, and do not hinder them, for to such belongs the kingdom of heaven.
When I was 21, a lady approached me and she gave me a piece of paper. And if I ever wanted help, she would be there. The message she constantly told me was that this is not who you are, and you are so much more than this.
For the price of a meal, join the chorus of other voices speaking up for those who cannot.
This is not okay. Then it was the courage for me to say, this stops, and this stops now.
1/2 of all the profits will be donated to Through the Black to help combat child trafficking.
I'm not the same person. I have completely changed, and I'm liking the person that I'm changing into. It's pretty cool.
And we can all say, I am a voice. A voice of innocent children everywhere.
Hey guys, it's Rylan with Simple Street. I just wanted to hop on here and testify about the goodness of God real quick. Me and Mac were sitting here and we witnessed a guy walk up the street, and we're out here doing videos, and he walks up and I say, hey man, can I just pray for that? I thought it was his knee, but he said, no, it's my back. And we started praying for him, and we began to get words of knowledge about his L2 disc, and we felt a shift in his back, and we felt the Lord just move upon his back and to begin to heal that man. And then he spoke about his nerves, so we just started commanding nerves to be made whole in the name of Jesus. And we watched this guy walk away from here with his cane in his hand, not even using it, and actually testing his mobility out as he's walking away. That's what it's all about right here. That's what we do. We love to just love people and to pray with people and watch the Lord heal people's sicknesses and diseases. It's just amazing. I just wanted to testify about that.
They say that in war, the truth be the first casualty. So I begin selector, I the resurrector, fly
The board game you've been waiting for is finally here. way to learn while you're having fun with family and friends.
It prompts you, if you don't understand it, to read it.
I think it's a fun way to learn, and it's for a big range of ages and knowledge.
You know,
this is so easy for kids.
Canon Quest Focus. Our crowdfunding campaign has launched. Join us. Click, pledge, and share with family and friends who want to have fun while learning.
All right, and we are back with our second hour, guys. Thanks for sticking around. We're seeing a bunch of new people popping in and some of our regulars. Good to see you guys. We are here with Matt Howard talking some spiritual warfare talk, and right now we're getting through his testimony and some of the things that he's experienced in the first hour, and we're going to continue that on in the second hour. But I did want to drop in and say that last commercial we just added is from a good friend of ours, a Take on the World alumni. He is his name is Michael Solomon, and he's put together a board game. It's a biblically based board game called Canon Quest, and he's doing a crowdsourced backing for that. So we're going to be running his commercial, and we've got his banner that's up here as well. So if you guys are interested in that or getting involved in that project, it's really cool. It's something that, if you've got kids or teenagers and you want to get them more involved, it's a really cool game that he has that that's got families together with a biblical topic. So guys,
it
check
is
that
cool
out.
And its graphics are sweet.
Yeah, he's done a lot of work.
He's a 3D graphic guy, so yeah, it looks really cool. It's a really cool game. So
yeah, so if you guys check that out, it's Canon Quest, or you can find Michael Solomon. He's on Facebook, and he'll be at Take on the World this year. He does a lot of biblical cosmology stuff. It's some really cool. He works with like the kids groups and takes them through like science projects with biblical cosmology and a lot of really cool things. So he's really involved, and it's something if you want to get your kids interested and sit down a family move or kind of like family game night and have something that's biblically oriented, it's definitely something to look into and to back. It's going to be a cool thing once he gets that all put together and gets it out there. So Ian, did you want to something, just a request because everybody's still here. Ian's got something big that's coming up around the time of Sukkot. So guys, just keep Ian in the prayers. Is something that's really, that the God's putting together, that, the more backing we can get for that, for, prayer and support, it's going to be a pretty awesome thing. And we'll probably talk about that more as that gets closer, but yeah, it's going to be awesome. Ian was just letting me on before the show, letting me in on a little of the information, and I'm excited. So
yeah, it's going to be really big. Just pray for God's direction, and I would just play for God's direction and God's timing on a lot of stuff. But I don't want to mention anything yet because there's really nothing set in stone, anything hard that I can really share right now, but it is going to be that week. So it's going to be exciting to talk about here and coming up. But hey, Matt, before we get back into this, did you know that I made a film called Quantum Illusion?
No, I did not.
Well, I'm going to share the link. I'll put it in the description and stuff on this video too, but It got banned from YouTube, but it's right up your alley with this whole alien, demon, and cosmology and all this different stuff. And pretty much DMT and how it's pretty much about how we're in the matrix that we always talk about, but that this matrix is actually a big game of hide and seek. And, we're hiding, or, how the scriptures say that God's giftings are without repentance. So no matter what, you get what he gave you in the beginning, whoever you use it for is your own free will. But what if he created, and what if Satan, when he fell, he kept his giftings, which was to hide the glory of God. So he's down in our realm hiding God just like he was in the heavens. And now it's a game of hide and seek that we play, to find the truth and uncover that stuff. So it's pretty cool. It's, it's banned from YouTube, but it's on LBRY or Odyssey or whatever it's called now. So I'll share that link with you, but I'd love to hear your feedback on that.
Okay, awesome.
Ren was in the live chat asking about if you have a YouTube channel or where people can find, because you were doing, I don't want to jump the gun on it, but you've got your Facebook page that you were pretty much predominantly doing stuff through, right?
Right. And I was going to put a YouTube channel together in the near future. After the deliverance, I started doing just like Facebook Lives, and it's every Monday night. I wish I had a set schedule in my life but it can be anywhere from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. on a Monday night. And I make sure 24 hours in advance that I let everybody know like what time I'll be there and what we'll be talking about. But yeah, every Monday nights on Facebook Live, you can just look up Matt Howard. And
and you can also, if you joined our SITREP Resistance Facebook page, he's in there. And a lot of times you post him up in there too, don't you? After you're done.
Yeah, I stick them up in.
Yeah, so you'd find it there. Maybe your next one or so, we'll pin it. We'll pin it up as an announcement, just so everybody can figure out who you are and add you.
Okay.
Make it easy.
Awesome. So, where did I leave off? Did I leave off talking about how I just kind of discovered that aliens were demons and the way God created the world in Genesis was truth, and it kind of like dropped me to my knees?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So like I was crying like hard about this, because at that moment when you realize that the world is set up and created just the way the Bible says it is, that means that there's definitely a creator, and it's the God of the Bible, the God of Scripture. So now I know that I'm accountable to somebody, and that I just can't run around doing drugs, drinking, screaming, playing rock and roll, messing with the occult and all of that kind of stuff. So I start slowly coming to Christ. I started having my come to Jesus moment. Like I said, First Samuel was the first thing that I'd read, other than like the first like 5 or 6 chapters of Genesis, because the stuff with the serpent led me into the Genesis stuff, which I believe that not only was God showing me that the serpent was here and that was legit and real, but he was also trying to get my eyes over here to look at the creation story in Genesis, so that way in the future when I would discover like the geocentric biblical cosmology, that it would make sense when I actually seen it. So it's awesome how God takes all these little pieces and pieces it all together. And without the mushroom trips, I would have never believed in spiritual warfare. I would have never believed that the spiritual realm was that intense. Because you can talk to people about it now and they're like, no way, dude, that's just fairy tale garbage nonsense. But they'll believe aliens, and they'll believe that they're hurtling through space and that they came from a big bang. But they can't wrap their head around a creator, and it's an enclosed system, and that us and all of these other spirit entities are right here.
Yeah, and they believe in ghosts, and they believe that like there's people are trapped between worlds until they get their hug that they were waiting on when they died or something stupid like that. It's like, oh, he wanted a hug. He's just been hanging out here for 47 years, haunting this floor and trying to get a hug. It's like crazy stuff like that. And then they don't believe that there's a God that created things. Yeah,
right.
It's nuts.
I think sometimes, I mean, that's kind of was, I came up in a family that was into spiritual warfare and deliverance. So even from a young age, but when I got out on my own and was my own experiences, it was my experiences of seeing the demonic realm. And I was a paranormal investigator. I ran one of the lead paranormal groups in Indianapolis. And some of the things that I saw made me, and heard and experienced made me go, these people, this isn't dead people. Like these are, I went in with more questions than or came out with more questions than I had answers. And, it made me realize if there's darkness, if there's evil, then everything that I saw as a child and everything I was taught through my spiritual family, like there has to be an opposition to that. Because if we had an enemy that is as powerful as they are and seeks to kill us and destroy us on a daily basis, if there wasn't an opposition to that, we would all be dead. That's the realization that I came to. So if there was an evil, if there was a devil, if there were demons, if there were giants, all this stuff, what is stopping them from destroying us? Because we can't see them. That's the worst kind of predator-prey scenario. We can't see them, you know? So that's what, really kind of made the whole realization. And it's cool, though, around 2015, we talked to Rob Skiba. He talks about this a lot. There was a big awakening around 2015 where a lot of people just started waking up to different things at that time frame. I thank Rob for a lot of this stuff because I was following him back on his, I don't know, that was Prophecy Club days, like, 15, 20 years ago when he was coming out with, the Nephilim stuff. And that really opened my eyes. And then the biblical cosmology took God from being in either another dimension or millions of billions of trillions of years, light years away, to literally looking down over my shoulder. That really changed my perspective. So, all of this, I'm relating to all of what you're talking about.
So when I actually joined a church, and became a member in a church, I told them before I said yes to being like an official member of their church, I said, I will not let go of biblical cosmology. I will not subscribe to the globe. And I was like, so I just want you to know that I'm not, because they think we're living on a globe. And no matter what I show them, they're just like, well, I don't know. So I told them, I was like, yes, I love fellowshipping here. And, I agree with 95% of what you guys say, but there's this little 5% gap to where I'm telling you, I'm not going to budge on that. And I just want you to know that that's what you're getting by asking me to be on your church board. You got a guy who's, not subscribing to the globe and that believes in spiritual warfare and deliverance. And because I think that's why God called me into that church, because I hate to say this because I love them, but it was a dead church. And how can you have a dead church with the living Lord Jesus Christ? It's just, something's wrong. Something's wrong if the church is dead when our God is the God of the living.
Yep.
So, but,
I do want to say something though. So even if you're watching the show right now and you're not convinced on biblical cosmology or, the conspiracy theory of flat earth or whatever you guys want to call it these days, doesn't change anything about our faith. We still completely, agree that Jesus is Lord and he's the Christ and he died and rose again. And he's, that we can agree on that so we can partner and do business, right? We're not cutting ties or doing any of that stuff. It is just one of those things that is really amazing when you're shown something or led down that path and you allow the Spirit to teach you in certain things. And I don't know why God chooses to not reveal things to certain people, but it's not up to me. And I know you guys probably feel the same way. I don't need to convince anybody. Let every man be convinced in his own heart, right? And so I know what I believe and I'm fine with that. And I don't need to push it on anybody, but
I
agree when they ask me questions, though, it's real hard to answer, certain things when you're like, man, I can't even really say what I think right now because it's going to make it super awkward. You know what I mean? So it's kind of, I get that, but yeah, I would at all costs, I would try not to sever ties over that.
Yeah, no, it's definitely because it's about personal revelation. And I think that, I think God knows exactly what it's going to take to get his point across with each individual person. We have a personable God, one that we don't have Zeus or whatever, who sits up in an ivory tower and doesn't want to touch the people, right? We have a God that knows us. It says he knew us before we were conceived, right? And he knows the number of hairs on our head. You don't think that he's going to know what it's going to take to wake you up. And I think for a lot of us, especially in conspiracy, the conspiracy-minded Christians found flat Earth like it was like that, and they took it, the truther aspect of it. But there are other people out there that don't need to know that the earth is flat and that it's a dome and it's the footstool of God. It's an immovable. It's, they don't need to know that to have that personal relationship with God. It became more natural to them. We tend to we're built more inquisitive, more wanting to know these things. We're kind of like, doubting Thomas, prove it to me, show me,
Well, actually, I think also you might be right about that, but I also think you got to think about this. We're all different parts of the body. So if, there's some certain revelation that comes through that cosmology, and, Torah is another one. There's certain things that come through for us that, it'd be like the mind sending a signal to the eye, how to visualize what it's seeing, right? If you set that same thing to the foot, it's not going to know what the heck it is. It doesn't have the ability to use that information. You know what I mean? So deliverance and stuff like that. I know we're all called to it, but I believe there are certain things like your testimony with the things that you've seen in the supernatural realm and things like that will come in handy, because there will be people that God will bring into your life that you will identify with through your testimony, through your experience, that will be something that God specifically set up for you. You know what I mean? And the other person. Whereas there are people out there that are awesome believers that will never do deliverance like we do, right? They may believe in it, but they're just a different function of the body, right? They don't have that. So therefore they don't need to learn the ways to protect yourself against certain attacks and things like that, because they probably will never have that come up. You know what I mean? We don't know. But I always try to think why is it, and I heard a guy speaking about something like this, and he was saying it's the divine mercy of God that everything is not revealed to everyone, because you become accountable for the things that are revealed to you. And he said the mercy is the fact that God doesn't show people certain things because they're not ready to obey. And that's divine mercy on his behalf, because it's judgment, in the other way. If he shows them and they're not going to obey it, there's a judgment required. So it's his mercy to withhold that from them. And I never thought about it like that, but it makes a lot of sense. And that's why I think we should just encourage each other to keep going deeper into their walk and their faith and their relationship, as opposed to kind of grouping ourselves off by experiences and calling and things like that.
Right. I used to split hairs and be like, oh, I can't be over here fellowshipping with these people or these people, but I don't split hairs anymore. It doesn't matter if somebody believes in a flat earth or a globe, as long as the main focal point is Christ and his finished work on the cross.
Right.
This might be a bit radical for some people, but I don't even split hairs. If there's a oneness Pentecostal over here and a Trinitarian over here, I feel like I can talk to both of those people.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Is the focal point, man.
Yeah, dude, that's the one thing that I think is the super cool, because, just from being able to do this show and being able to talk to people from all kinds of different backgrounds, even before this show, just the immense knowledge that we have. Some of us in this chat room, and the guys that we have met online and become friends with and stuff. We have an amazing ability to really connect with a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds, just from the simple knowledge that we have. You know what I mean? We're like, our hands are in. We've just been, we've dove into the knowledge aspect. And I honestly, I used to think, how could Christians not dive into the knowledge? Right. And I used to be like, I don't understand why you have access to all this stuff and you literally don't even care. But as awesome as it is super weighty on me, because, you feel that burden, man, I'm accountable for a lot of stuff that maybe I shouldn't be. You know what I'm saying? Because maybe if I hadn't dug so far you know what I'm saying? I wouldn't have gotten this, and then I wouldn't feel like, oh my gosh, like, but it's, I think God does it on purpose, or maybe you do it, but he allows it, right? You're the one seeking after the knowledge part. But I feel like also, I don't know if you feel this, Aaron, or maybe even you feel it, Matt, but do you feel like it's harder to have faith because you know so much? Like you tend to think about a lot of too deeply into things before you say yes, because you don't have all the information, maybe, or at least you think you don't have all the information. So you're kind of like, is this a trap? Like, instead of just jumping in and being like, God, I heard you say this, I'm going to go do it. Now we're like, I'm going to go check this out because I want to make sure. But then you kind of get stuck in that whole knowledge thing, and you're just like on the quest for way too long, and you miss the opportunity. You know what I mean?
I think it's definitely trappings, because you got to think that Satan is not he's not omnipotent, right? He doesn't know our futures, but he knows humankind, and he's been around since the creation of humankind, right? And he also he knows the sheep nature of man. So our actions, the doors that we open, he's seen it 1,000 times. So I think it's one of the trappings of the truther community is it starts putting the seeds of doubt and deception, and those are the first things that ruin hope and faith, is that doubt and deception. But you have to remember too, I think God works all things for good, and so what the enemy meant for evil, God makes for good. So the way that God created us, the enemy's trying to trap us, but God has built us, just like Proverbs 25:2 says, it's the glory of God, or the glory of God to conceal a matter, but to search out a matter is the glory of kings. So, God has put and concealed some of these things because he knows there are people who are built this way that have to have and put the puzzle pieces together and stuff, So, but yeah, I do feel it though. Like there are times when it's like, could that be a move of God? My mom will send me a video or somebody's praying or healing somebody, and it's like, could that really be a move of God, or is this like, smoke and mirrors? Kundalini, like, is that's all running through my head? Am I taking away from the Holy Spirit because I know too much?
Yes,
sometimes
I
feel
absolutely. That's exactly what I'm talking about, because I have the same thing. Like, and I have. It's so today. I don't want to take away from today's show, but I feel like I should say this. I was learning about I was listening to some things today about faith and how we focus our mind on faith. It becomes your lifestyle. You have to change the way you think and always be thinking about what would God do, right? What's God doing? And stop looking at what the enemy's doing, because it doesn't even matter what he's doing, right? He's in control. He's got you where he wants you. As long as you're listening, you won't have to deal with any of that stuff, right? A lot of the battles can be won or avoided before they even happen if you're paying attention, but because we get in our own way. But I also thought, like, when a situation comes up, do we first look at it being an attack and why is it happening and all that stuff first, or do we think of it as like, Lord, this is an opportunity for you to show yourself to me in another way, right? Like, for example, and then we look at something good in the situation and focus on that as opposed to what is being lost or what is being attacked, right? Because, like, think about this. So the story with Elisha, when he goes he's out in the wilderness and he's, telling God he needs to eat and all that stuff. And God says, go here and I'm going to send you to a widow who will feed you, right? Which, first of all, the widows are usually poor. They're the ones that we're supposed to take care of. So it's already kind of upside down, right? He's sending Elisha the prophet to someone poor to take care of him, right? Which seems weird. So it probably seemed weird to him to have to go to a widow for, support. So he goes there, but like, remember the Old Testament, because prophets are like, the word of the Lord came to the prophet. It didn't come to everyone else. So we have the scripture now. We have the gift of prophecy, which is the testimony of Jesus. That is the word. But before Jesus, it was the word came through the prophets. So this is like the word of the Lord comes to the widow in the form of Elisha. She recognizes it and he says, woman, I need bread, right? Give me something to eat. And she says, I don't have any bread. Okay. Which is like the perfect scenario for us, right? God's telling us to do something. And we're like, we don't have it, right? I don't have what you're looking for, God. But she doesn't say, I don't have any bread. She says, I don't have any bread, but I have a little bit of oil and a little bit of flour. And I was getting ready to make the last meal for me and my son, and then we were going to die. You know what I mean? But what she said was, I don't have bread, but I have the ingredients to make bread. So I will go make the bread, right? So how many times do we ever think, like, in our mind, like when God's telling us to do something, we think, God, I don't have what it takes to do that. And he said, just give me what you have, right? Just give me what you have and I'll make something out of it, right? But we don't even think we have anything because we're looking at, like, why is God doing this to me, right? Why is he asking me for this? He knows I'm about to die. Why does he want my last meal? You know what I mean? And it's like that perspective of, how do we get into that mindset of, I don't have any bread, but I have the stuff to make bread, because that's like, it goes against our nature, because we oftentimes we pray for God to do something. We want his will. We want him to do this thing in our lives, but we don't want to wait. We don't have the patience. We don't want the patience to let him cook it, right? To like make it. We're like hungry now. God, give it to me now. I don't want to wait for this. But he always makes us wait. Like that's like everything so drawn out. But that's mercy though, right? Because if it wasn't, we'd be screwed. Because we never answer right away. So if he only gave us one shot, we'd be in big trouble. Like, thank God patience is a virtue, right? It makes us learn this over our entire life. But I thought that was interesting today, that I thought that, and I'm just thinking about that perspective change, because some of these little things like cosmology and things like that, just everything is so unique for every person to get us to this place where we trust God, like whatever it is, like the things that we've seen, the things that we've experienced, it just piles on to a revelation, a personal revelation that we stand on, and that builds our faith. I just think it's super cool.
It is super cool. And I'm glad we're all in agreement about how it's not a good idea to split hairs like that in the body of Christ, because there's a lot of division. There's a lot of people who like to divide instead of, come together. And you look in the book of Acts and it tells you so many times through that book, the apostles did this in one accord. They did this in one accord, be of one mind. And like, boy, there's a lot of people that don't like to be of one mind. If you don't agree like strictly to what they're saying, then they like to nitpick. And, I'm glad I got past that phase, because I was a part of that at one time. But that's an immaturity in faith, I guess.
It is.
Yeah,
it is. And I think
I was saying there's 33,000 denominations of Christianity right now, and each one of those stems from a disagreement. And this person teaches this, and we want to teach this, and so they break off and become this. And it's insane, but that's the enemy's tactic. But again, we can look at the enemy's tactic and we can look at God's tactic, and I look at it like God knows that some people don't like the rock entertainment thing of like a non-denominational church. They like the old hymnals, and some people don't like the doom and gloom teaching of others, and some like the baptism of the Baptists, So, God still utilizes that division to bring people into the unity of the body. They just don't look like everybody else. It's where the division, where people start arguing about whose God is right when it's the same God, is where it gets difficult. It's like the finger poking the eye, of the same body.
Yeah. Wow, yeah, it is. So with deliverance, so Derek Prince, after I'd been reading my Bible, I'd been trudging around in the Old Testament. Don't ask me why. That was probably a tactic of Satan trying to keep me from going over to the other side to getting to know Jesus. But I was trudging through the Old Testament, and I guess when I didn't even know the story of David and Goliath was actually in 1 Samuel. So like, that's how much I didn't know about scripture. So when I'm reading that, I was like, oh, hey, yeah, I remember that story. So like, I'm still into research and stuff, and I'm reading the Bible, and I'm coming home and trying to read like 2 or 3 chapters a night when I started out. And then I would go to watching videos and studying stuff. And Steve Quayle mentions Derek Prince one night. And I'm like, well, this Steve Quayle guy, he really knows a lot. So if he learned a chunk of what he knows from this Derek Prince guy, I was like, Derek Prince might be worth investigating. Best decision that I ever made, because then I was opened up to the New Testament to where I could understand it. I was opened up to deliverance, and it all made so much sense because of what I had experienced with the spirit realm and these entities and things like that. I was like, oh man, this is totally real. And the demons that were being cast out by Jesus, that's still going on today. And so it made me open to my eyes to what I had going on in my life, because I still had like sun worship things like hanging up on my wall. I had a Buddha statue, just all kinds of stuff like that. Just a lot of secular stuff and occult stuff. I still had witchcraft books on my bookshelf. So I got rid of all of this stuff, and I started just like fresh, brand new. And also, like, I realized that I couldn't just be like running around and like chasing women anymore, and that I needed to just sexuality needed to be experienced in the confounds that God has set for us. Any other way is unhealthy and rebellious against what God created sexuality for. So with Derek Prince, and this is probably this is in 2017, that made like a huge impression on me. And so I started researching and studying deliverance ministry, and I was off and rolling with my New Testament, and I was able to understand the Bible. And you're not going to understand your Bible without the Holy Spirit being there to guide you through that Bible. It just doesn't make sense until the Holy Spirit lets it make sense to you. So I got baptized. I left that out. I got baptized in the summer of 2016. And when I came up from the water, you know how like when somebody's going through deliverance and they start coughing and just hacking and everything? When I got baptized and I came up, I coughed for like 20 minutes.
They probably thought they drowned you. They're like, this guy's supposed to hold his nose.
Like, I had no idea that what was going on. And I took off, and I like distanced myself from everybody and just sat under this tree and just was like, and just like coughed forever. Then when I actually seen a deliverance session, I was like, that's what happened to you, man. You got baptized and made the public statement that you belong to Christ, and like they all had to flee. I mean, not everything, because you're not going to get rid of all of it, but a great deal of them had to just go right then and there during that baptism.
That's awesome.
And then after that, that's when I was actually able to understand my Bible. That's what made me go back and like mention that baptism, not only because it was like deliverance, even though I didn't realize that's what was happening, but after that, that's when I was able to understand the Bible. So like, even if you come to Christ, like there's like demonic spirits that will hinder you to try to keep you from effectively serving Christ. If you make it that far, like you make it that far, and they're going to try to hinder your walk, and they'll do it your entire walk.
There's spirits of confusion, you know, all that stuff, and you don't even really know.
There we go. I said religion is one of those that you open yourself up to as a new believer. People really take on that whole, I feel this way, so that I have to enforce this with everybody else, and you become the Pharisee, that points his finger at everybody else and says, just like Jesus said about the Pharisees, he says, they honor me with their mouth, but their heart is far from me. There were a lot of people that I have seen that are walking in that spirit right now, thinking that they are doing the works of God, but it's in a vain attempt to using the name of God. So that's one I see a lot, is that as a new believer, people pick up pretty quickly.
Yeah, I kind of got stuck in that too. Like, after I was on the right track with like the Derek Prince stuff and deliverance, and then I got sidetracked for a little while because I bumped into the Hebrew Israelites on YouTube. and they messed me up for about 6 months.
You mean the Hebrew root stuff?
Yeah. That messed me up pretty bad for a minute. And in particular, the groups that said that they were like the seed of Abraham, and that like Gentiles couldn't be saved unless they were like grafted in, or that type of stuff. Calling I'll just say it, calling white people Edomites and white devils, like that.
Oh, the black Hebrew Israelites.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. There's like a bunch of different ones. So there's Hebrew roots, there's black Hebrew Israelite guys. Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Okay.
So for a minute, I was questioning, like, am I not going to have salvation based upon the fact that I'm like a white guy? And then, thank God, I actually sat down and read more of my Bible. And when I got through the book of Acts, I was like, dude, this just tore down everything these guys preach. Like, the book of Acts literally destroys their doctrine. Not only that, but are you familiar with like the Septuagint at all?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So in the Septuagint, Job has like a little bit of extra stuff in it that's not in like your King James.
Yeah.
Like, it actually tells you that Job is from the lineage of Esau, and that Job is Jobab, and that he's like fifth from Abraham, from like the lineage of Esau. So that makes Job an Edomite. And I'm just like, that destroys what they talk about too, because technically, Job, God was there for Job, and he was not sinless, but he was blameless, and God had a protective hedge around Job. And if the doctrine that these guys were preaching was accurate and correct, God wouldn't have had a protective hedge around, an Edomite or somebody from the lineage of Esau, like they were preaching. So that just, after I got away from that, I got back on the right track with deliverance and all of that. And so after that, I discovered like Chris LaSala. Are you familiar with Chris LaSala, Breakthrough Deliverance Ministries out of Corsicana, Texas?
No, it doesn't sound
think
familiar.
so.
He's a bit rough. I guess he's no nonsense is how I should put it. He's a no nonsense kind of guy. Like, if you come to him and you're like flip floppy and lukewarm, he'll give you the opportunity to get it together. But if you won't get it together, he's just like, get out of here, because you don't want it. So
yeah.
Just get out of here. So he's a no nonsense kind of guy. So I started watching some of his videos, and through him, I realized, like, dude, you need a deliverance. But I could never find the courage to like seek it out. I just kept studying it, but I never was seeking it out. So then, lo and behold, Satan throws another dart my way. This girl starts talking to me, and we start becoming friends, and then we start dating. But I tell her, like, look, I'm a Christian. You don't need to stay all night at my house. We don't need to sleep in the same bed, so you got to be okay with these boundaries if we're going to hang out. And she's like, oh yeah, that's great. So then as time progresses, I start noticing that when she's at my house and I'm like reading scripture and she's hanging out with me, she like starts breathing heavy and sweating and getting real nervous and panicked and stuff. And I'm like, what is going on with this girl? And I find out she's like head first into witchcraft. And like, that's who she is. And she's like, but I want to change. And I realized as time went on, I was like, no, this person doesn't want to change. They were sent into your life to hinder your walk. So I had to cut ties with this girl. And then after that, like, I managed to get the courage together to go through a deliverance through a guy named Noah Hines. You guys ever heard of Noah Hines? He's a younger guy.
I feel like I have. Is he, did you do it online or is he from the area?
He's online. We
Okay.
did it through Skype.
Yeah. I don't know. I may know who that is.
I'm familiar with Noah. Yeah.
Oh, you are?
Mhm.
Okay.
So he helped me out with 2 sessions, actually 3. And each one, my manifestations were more and more each time that we went in. And he was like, wow, you really are like, resisting sin, because we're getting more and more out. And the more that he got out of me, that fear went away. Confusion went away. I had a lot of anxiety. I used to be afraid to like talk to people about my faith. Like, that's gone now. And after that, that's when I started making like the Facebook Live videos. I had zero confidence to do anything like that until after deliverance. And when I realized that deliverance was for everybody in the body of Christ, I was at work, and there's an older lady in like her 80s, and she was complaining of like knee trouble. And we sat down, and I put my hands on her knee, and we prayed. And like, it felt like there was something in her knee, like fighting. And then like, she was able to, it went away, but it eventually came back. And when she came to me and told me that it had come back, like immediately, like the Holy Spirit's telling me, like, she's got unconfessed sin in her life that she needs to like let go of. There's like ties to stuff that she's got to let go of, and it's not going to completely go away until she breaks those ties. And I tried to talk to her about it, but she didn't completely understand. And I asked her if she had a Bible, and she told me, she says, I can't read. So I got her an audio Bible, and I brought it to her at work. And I was like, just listen to this every chance you get. Start with the New Testament half of it. And once you understand that, then you can backtrack and go into the Old Testament. It'll make more sense to you, and just pray for understanding. And I'm hoping that she gets to a place to where she understands enough to where we can work on that. But then I started doing deliverance on people that understood what was going on. There's only been 4 occasions, twice with the same person. And then my mom actually allowed me to do deliverance. And she was a skeptic. She's a Christian, but she was a skeptic on that. She's no longer a skeptic on deliverance. I got a little bit of fear during that, because that's the first time that I had like a manifestation, like face to face. It was just me and her in a room. So I'm like, uh-oh, like I seen something behind her eyes that clearly was not like my mom at all. And it was like just bitter hatred, like anger is what it was. Mm-hmm. And we were able to get that out. And she came to me and she said that the next day, she was like, I had the best day at work that I've ever had in my life. And things that used to make me mad just didn't make me mad anymore. And I was like, well, don't thank me, thank Jesus. Like, that's the source of that power. And anybody can do this that operates within the authority and the power given by Jesus Christ. And I just wish that it wasn't so frowned upon by the mainstream American church.
Well, the reason that it's frowned upon by the mainstream American church, we'll just say the Western church, because it's because they're all spirit. There's spirits inside these people that they're not free, you know.
Right.
They're kind of free, but they're not all the way free. So they have that conflict inside themselves, and so that's why they're not okay with it.
There's definitely that, and there's also infiltration. We've seen firsthand infiltration of the church, the people that are pulling the strings or that are dictating what is being taught at the church is going through the hands of people who are put there. It's no different than the child attractive pedophiles. When you have an attraction to something, you're going to seek a position that you can influence, and that's what we see is we see these people that
it's subversion. I mean,
yeah,
that's a tactic of warfare. So why wouldn't the enemy subvert the other? I mean, that's just, it makes no sense when Christians say, why would the devil pretend to be a pastor? It's like, that makes no sense. You know what I mean? Why wouldn't he? Yeah, why wouldn't he? I mean, it's like when you tell people like, I don't know if you're your pastor or if this person in the church with authority or whatever, it's like, I don't feel like they're being led by the Spirit. Something else is going on. They're like, oh no, he's, I've known him for 30 years and, he tithes and he does all this. And it's like, man, if we need people, and I think the time's coming, people like us that the Lord has shown this stuff to, that have experiences firsthand, that believe in deliverance and know their authority. These spirits that are behind these people, and when you come in contact with this stuff, when we realize our authority and all that stuff, we have the opportunity to change the atmosphere wherever we are right now. Like, you bring it with you. You know what I mean? Like, when we walk into the room, they should be leaving the room. You know what I mean? That's how it should be. They should be like, oh, crap. Like, I'm going to have to wait until this dude leaves, because if he knows I'm here, he's going to make me leave. You know what I mean? And so I really feel like, that's kind of the thing. And that's almost like the best witnessing tool ever, to have that kind of authority. Like, think about this in like the form of a movie. If you're like the John Wick, you walk into the room and everything knows you're there. You know what I'm saying? Like, they know you're there.
That's how it happens sometimes too.
Yeah, and they're like, everyone's looking at you like,
everybody gets a text message at the same time.
Yeah, they all get, because it's a spiritual thing, right? You feel like, that scene at the end of John Wick 3, or is it John Wick 2, when they put that hit on him, and literally all the phones start ringing. He's walking through like the park, and there's like hundreds of people, and every one of them's like giving him that look like, I'm going to kill you. Everyone wants to kill this guy. I mean, that's what the spirits look like when they see you, or they see the Spirit in you. They're like, I hate that guy. Like, but they know your power, right? It's not your power. It's, what I mean? It's the authority that we carry. But that's when we realize that. You ever watch those movies with like, we're talking like sword fighter type movies back in the day when they like the king and everything in it. You always have that arrogant like son of or like an arrogant person that's like on behalf of the king. He's doing his crazy stuff and he's like, how dare you try to rob me? Don't you know who I am? That kind of stuff. And you're like, nobody cares who you are, dude. You know what I mean? Like the royal guys when they're getting robbed by Robin Hood, they're like, how dare you? If we could get into that mindset, like, what are you even trying to do right now, Satan? Like, but yet we're still kind of scared in a way of all this stuff that happens. Like he's able to get us, shook up from stuff. But I mean, the goal is to get into that mindset where you're just like, the devil better not even try anything. You know what I mean? Because I'm ready to go. I'm ready to throw down. I know I got the quick draw. I'll be your Huckleberry or whatever he says, Tombstone. Like, bring it.
Well, that's why it's so important, and this is why, and I'm guilty of this too. But this is why we have to be focused on the kingdom of God, and our discernment needs to be on point, because we can't physically see into the spiritual realm, but the spiritual realm can see us, and it sees the light of God in you. And this is why people, cut you off, or somebody smarts off to you at the gas station or whatever, because they're slowly trying to steal your joy. And they're building up, a process. They know they can't harm you, right? Because you have a hedge of protection. But if they can screw your day up, they're going to try. And that's what so the sermon is imperative in these scenarios, because you have to know when you're walking into a room full of enemies. The people may not be the enemies, but just like Paul says, we wrestle not against flesh and blood. We wrestle against principalities and powers and spiritual wickedness in high places. These are what we're dealing with, and they can see us and we can't see them. So we have to go into our daily walk with the discernment of God, and we have to stop letting the world distract us all the time with all of the constant distractions. What's going on in the news? How am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to do this? God's trying to get us into a position where we trust Him with our food and our clothing and how the bills are going to get paid and that kind of stuff, while we focus on the task that we were indwelled with and endowed with, which is supposed to be taking care of spiritual business on this earth. So, we've got it all backwards. The whole world has it backwards. We worry about the little things like, how am I going to pay for this, or how am I going to, do this, or am I going to get this taken care of today, or I got to do the laundry or whatever. And we should be focusing on the spiritual. And that's because we are surrounded by enemies. This again is another reason why we have to recharge sometimes, and we have to have a community to remind us. And this is something that I think is really important that we're going to talk about more, and something in the conference that we're going to talk about is we need to be in these kind of groups and communities where it's not just, well, I know this person online or whatever, but it's personable. We can be there for each other. We can point out each other's flaws with that, without, getting in a Facebook war battle. It's actually iron sharpening iron. Perspective is everything. And sometimes in our lives, we can't see the demon that's standing in front of us because our perspective is skewed. But our brother, if we have one, if he knows what's going on in our life, can look at it from a different perspective and help us through that. So I think it's really important. This is something that, I want to really push and keep going, is the training of what a man needs to do in his home. And this goes for women as well, but we need to have these communities to watch each other's backs. And because this is a war, and we've talked about this so many times, and to understand the spiritual and what we're getting ourselves into when we walk out into that world, and we're walking out without the armor of God, we're walking into a battle zone where everything wants to kill us, completely unprotected. And, I know in my walk, I did that a lot, and I caught a lot of scars through that battling, on the other side. God made me to be a warrior, but I was running out in the battlefield with no armor. And, I came out the other side with some deep wounds, but thank God that He healed those things. But I still have the scars to remind me of all those troubles that I went through.
Yeah.
So something that I would like to focus on, that I don't know why God has put it in my heart. I'm not going to question it. I'm just going to roll with it. But children, the deliverance of children, like I've noticed that a lot of the mannerisms, dude, they are out to get our kids,
Absolutely.
Like right from the rip. And they're like so prone, like once they start going into a public school, you got to be really careful what they're watching, what they're listening to. Like Satan is out for your kids, and they unintentionally open up doorways to things because they don't know. And then not only that, but what came down through the bloodline, through your family, that
Right.
you don't know about. So I've been really focusing, studying like ways to make children feel comfortable with deliverance. Like there's a children's book about deliverance, and I can't remember who wrote it, but I was like, man, I need to get that book, because it's about a house and there's a skunk in the house, and the story's about how this skunk is like a problem in the house, stinking up the house, and we got to get it out. And I'm like, what a great way to like express and explain to children deliverance without freaking them out and being like, kids, you've got a demon. Like, no kids do that.
I have had
Well,
some.
I had.
Oh, go
Yeah.
ahead, Ian.
No, go ahead, man.
I was gonna say I've had some experience in that, in childhood deliverance, and what I have found is most of the time the doors are open because of the parents, and it is an awesome tool though for a parent to realize when you take their child through deliverance and they can actually physically see a change in their children, and they know and they understand. But what I've had to do is talk to people about what opened the door for them. The kids didn't. Kids aren't inherently going to open up the doors, but the parents a lot of times open up the doors for the children. A lot of the generational curses we don't deal with get passed on to our children. But it is a good testimony. It is a good tool to change an entire family. Look at biblically about the people, the child who was sick, the child who died, that when those children were healed, you saw a ripple effect throughout the family, and that's imperative too. If you're dealing with children that have issues, you have to do some inward searching as well, because those kids didn't get it from nowhere.
Well, I think too. So I think you're right, and I think the age of accountability has something to do with that. So, for example, I believe that we can break ties off of our kids, depending on the age of the kid.
Right.
Because we're the ones that open the door probably through whatever our sin was. And because when we get free from that, we can then pray a prayer and free them from it, right? Because they're only being held hostage because of us when they're under that age. So at least that's what I assume. I believe that to be true right now. I've not seen anything different than that. But I actually had to do deliverance on my son, and he's 3. And he's 4.
Uh-huh.
But man, that was super weird, because I did not expect that at all. It was like a weird, I forget even what the whole thing was. We were praying about something, and he just stood up I remember we were praying over our home. We were going through and praying over the rooms and cleansing it and doing all that stuff, because we had some other stuff go on. And we're in the middle of praying, and I'm not going to make him pray because he's 4, So he's on the floor playing with his cars or his trucks or something. And he just stands up and looks at me and starts growling and being weird. And I didn't think nothing of it because he's a weird little dude anyways. So I was just like, Barrett, sit down and, play with your toys. We're almost done praying. You're doing really good, buddy. Just sit down. And he just was like doing this stuff and hulking out. That's what it was kind of like, being the Hulk, Yeah. So I'm like, okay. I'm like, dude, you're being a distraction, buddy. Just sit down. No, it was like he's zoned out. Just, So finally, I picked him up, and I picked him up, and he was stiff the whole time, So I just put him on my lap, and I was like, "Are you okay?" And he's still growling and stuff. So I look at my wife I don't know. I'm just going to rebuke it. So we started rebuking anger and stuff like that, and eventually he started just crying, which demons can come out through the tears.
Right.
So, he didn't manifest or anything, he didn't start coughing or anything like that. He just started crying. And I asked him if he was okay, and he didn't say anything. I'm like, "Are you scared?" He's like, "No." I'm like, "Are you mad?" He's like, "No, I'm just sad." Okay. So we just prayed over him, but I was like, little things like that. I think God is just trying to teach us things every day if we're paying attention. He's letting us experience these things, most people, maybe that's happened before and they get mad. I could have got mad at him and been like, "Get in your room," or you know what I mean, or whatever, because you're interrupting us, or but
that opens up a whole other doorway, because he could feel rejected then, and that could open up a spirit of rejection, a doorway for that. You did the right thing.
It was just really weird, and it was just one of those things where you're just like, huh, that's interesting. But to your point, where you got to be careful. But see, my son, he wasn't in school. He doesn't go to school. He doesn't go anywhere. You know what I mean? He's at home here, or he's at church. You know what I mean? But so how did that get in there? Well, it must have been through myself or my wife. You know what I mean? Or something he was born with, and it's just manifesting now. Unfortunately,
children, we've talked about the people that can't distinguish between the voices in their heads. Young children, they haven't had the box of reality that we have all been instilled. And so when I've dealt with a lot of this, both in the paranormal and in the deliverance ministry, is children tend to see things. A lot of children have, invisible friends, things like that. Those are things that they're literally seeing. They can point to them in a room. You know what I'm saying? It's not something that they're making up. It's not a vivid imagination of a child. They don't have the boundaries. Somebody has not told them that the shadow person in the corner of their room is not real. Right? That usually comes after the child's like, hey, Dad, there's a ghost in my closet. And then they go and they're like, no, there's no ghost there. Then you've just built a wall telling the kid that it doesn't exist. Right.
Right. Well, my son, he used to say weird stuff. So he used to say there was faces on his fan blades. And we were like, what? And this is when he's like 3. He kept saying the faces on the up in the sky right there. And he were like, on your fan, he's like right there. Like he would just point to these weird things, and he didn't like his room. Because there was something weird about his room, but you know what I mean? Children, like, this is all stuff. It was just kind of like, when it's bedtime, though, a lot of times parents are not in the mood to listen to their child tell them another reason they don't want to go to bed. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, I mean, I'm not mad at you, because it happens to me too. Because you're like, okay, son, listen, first you were hungry, and now you're seeing faces on your fan blades, buddy. Okay? It's like, close your eyes, you won't see them. You know what I mean? Or what do you tell them? And you know what I mean? You can't be just doing deliverance all the time on your kids. So I get it. But, I do think it's really interesting, because if you could find, I'm going to have to look up that book too, because I'm interested in what that book is actually, teaching in there. Because
it's a great idea. Yeah.
It is a good idea. And I really would like to have that conversation, because I do feel like kids would be able to, if they had any kind of idea about what they were seeing, they might be able to describe some stuff to you.
You got it?
Yeah. It's, I don't know if you can see that. It's called The Little Skunk by Sue Banks. And it's actually advertised in the back of, it's a children's deliverance.
Wow, that's cool.
Frank Hammond, the same guy that did Pigs in the Parlor.
Okay, I've got that book on my shelf.
He's got a book like strictly for like children's deliverance, and I'm like, dude, that is awesome, because my son, he grows up in 2 separate households.
My son does too. Yeah,
and so does my daughters.
Very secular family, and then there's me. So like, I'm constantly like being a prayer warrior for that family. And what's awesome is I've watched it like transform. Like my son's mother and her ex-husband have mended their marriage and got back together, and like, that's the father of her 2 daughters, and then my son lives there, and it's like a cohesive family unit. And at one time it was so broken and so chaotic, and then finally when Christ changed my heart, I looked over there at that situation, and I'm like, dude, you're supposed to be praying for them. You're supposed to be engaging in spiritual warfare for that family, because they don't know how.
Yeah.
So like, and it's just so awesome, because they're all under one roof. She's being an excellent mom. He's a great stepfather. Like, yes, they're not saved, and it's a secular family, but like, from that perspective, like, I see the good in them.
Yeah.
And I just keep, like, you can't if Christ was a glass of water, you just can't walk up to somebody and dump it down their throat. But when you see that they're thirsty, you can give them a sip. You can give them a little sip. And then finally they'll be willing to take the glass and drink for themselves. And we're getting to a point to where they're starting to like slowly come around. But like, some of that stuff that I told you I got rid of, like the sun tapestry and the Buddha statues and stuff, his mom like took that stuff, and I'm like, no, like, now that I know better, I'm like, no, now you've got like this Buddha idol in your house and sun worship stuff. So like, I'm like praying against that stuff, and just.
You ever think about, since masks are still kind of cool, putting a mask on and breaking in and kind of throwing away all that stuff?
That'd be awesome.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm 100% with you. Like my son, I had him, and that was a pivotal change in my growth as well. As when I had my child, I finally understood, just the love of God through the love of me loving my son. But I worked in the bar industry. That's why I said a lot of your testimony aligns with mine. I worked in the bar industry, and his mother, we worked in the bar industry together, and we had my son. Both of us I went into dad mode, she went into mom mode, and we had no similarities anymore because we didn't go out drinking anymore. But when we split up, she ended up marrying a guy who was my old neighbor, and he was a Christian guy, and they had 2 boys together. I wouldn't say that they're like walking in obedience, but they're going to church and things like that, and he's in a stable household with a guy that I know is going to be there to raise my son when I'm not there. And so it's awesome, and I see the same thing. But I look at it like, just like God can put people in your around you and things like that, when you start walking in obedience, it starts changing people's hearts too. The people that are around you and close to you, that light starts shining. And I've seen it with my own eyes where, people can change you never thought would, step a foot in church. And, God starts working on them just because you're in relative area of them, so.
Well, dude, it's so cool too, because I've just recently had several interactions with people that have been watching my Facebook stuff. Okay. Just my posts. And they've been watching this show. They've been watching other things I've put out for years and never commented, never said a thing. So, and it's like when they tell you, I've been watching you and I really like what all this stuff. And you're like, what? And you're like, yeah, like, you're like, man, how long you been watching? Oh, I've been watching for years, and you're like, what? Like, it's just shocking because you're like, this is unbelievable. What are you know what I mean? Like, they, because you want everybody that watches you to like it. So when you look and you see like 7 likes on Facebook, you're like, oh, there's only 7 people watching. When really there's a lot of people are watching. There's so many people watching you to see what it is, right? They're very curious, especially when, there's people like you that drastically change in a short amount of time. You're like, what in the world is this? Because there must be something real about this, because I knew him before and now I don't know him. He's changed so much, so.
I lost a ton of friends that just, but I figured like if God wanted them in my life during this season, they would be there. So yep. I just brush it off and keep going in the direction that he sent me in. And it's like, for a while I was questioning like, dude, do I belong at Walmart? Do I need to be there? Do I need to be doing something more? And then they changed my position to where I went out of the back room to the sales floor. And now that I'm on the sales floor, I have like tracks and different little things. And I hide them throughout the store, or if I see somebody that I'm drawn to give one to, I give one to them. Like I put them in the back pockets of like the men's jeans, and then like I'll go to the book section and I'll find a secular book that just looks like it's real far away from God, and I'll shove one inside of there. Or like I bought these ones that said, can I trust the Bible? And I had all this great information about the Bible. So I was putting them inside the Bibles at that Walmart. So when somebody bought a Bible, and if it was somebody who was a skeptic or didn't understand, they had this pamphlet right there to walk them through. Like, awesome. Okay, this is reliable. I can trust Christ. Like, and I would have never thought of doing something like that on my own.
Hey, let me ask you a question. That's really cool. Are you a vegan?
No.
Oh, thank God, because I was going to throw out everything you just said if you were a vegan. Thank God you're not a vegan. I'm just kidding. No. But by the way, there are lots of Walmart executives that listen to this show.
They know all your secrets now.
They know that you're putting stuff in the back pockets of jeans and hiding tracks now. So,
all right.
Oh man. Well, Yeah. Did you have anything else you wanted to? Because we're coming up on, we're going a little bit over, and we got a couple of.
Okay.
Do you have anything else you wanted to add, or anything? I know we want to get people, if you want to tell them again where they can find you and all that stuff too. We'd really appreciate it.
Okay. You can just find me on Facebook. I'm public. You can find me real easy. Just look for Matt Howard, and you'll see my face, and then a big banner that says "Jesus Christ is not a cuss word," and then you'll know it's me. I have a small group where I post things. It's called Matthew 10:26, which it's named after that scripture, because that scripture was one of the first ones that just brought me comfort in my heart. So you can look for that group, or just add me on there, and I'm live every Monday night. And I would love to come back some night, guys.
Absolutely, dude.
Thanks for having me.
You'll have to actually try to hook up with me and do some stuff local.
Has he been down with Simple Street or anything yet?
No.
Oh man, yeah.
Like I don't know what your schedule's like, but yeah, we're going to be doing a lot of cool stuff. We're already starting to do a lot of cool stuff, but there's going to be some really cool stuff going on this summer, and we'll have to get you involved. I don't know what your schedule's like, but you're not far away from me.
No, so I'll make time for something. I'll put in for a day if I need to come out and get with everybody.
I think you'd really enjoy getting linked up with some of these guys, because they're, it's really fun to get hooked up with some awesome dudes that are doing spiritual warfare, that understand you, that can pray with you about, and know how to do warfare.
Yeah, there's some really cool things going on in Dayton right now, man. You're in a good hub, especially for spiritual warfare and deliverance, because that's where God is setting up a lot of people right now. So
awesome, because that's a community that really, really needs it.
Oh, so yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
All right. The one thing I wanted to add, if anybody is going to the Go Therefore conference just outside of Dayton, Ohio, my mom and one of her friends and one of their friends they're renting a hotel or something. Like, they got 2 rooms and they have an extra bed. So if anybody is looking for a place, reach out to myself or Vicky Sampson. If you guys want to go in, I don't know how they're doing it, going half on a hotel room or something. Sorry, my daughter's losing it right now. But yeah, reach out if you guys are going to the conference and need a place to stay. They've got a guy that's staying there. Good grief.
She needs deliverance, bro. We'll wait. Right. Go ahead.
And what else? Something else. I lost track of what I was going to say. But yeah, Matt, it's been awesome to have you on here, man. We'd love to have you back and talk deeper about things. My only suggestion is you get the YouTube channel going, man. Put the first thing out there. Put your testimony, because it's a fantastic testimony. This is good practice. It's a good workout coming on here and telling it, because it's a good story. But yeah. Other than that, what you got, Ian?
Nothing. I'm excited to be back, and I got a couple people that I'm really trying to get on the show that I think it'd be really cool to talk with. So pray for that. I don't want to say anybody's names, but pray for that. But yeah, and then pray for this event that's going to happen. It's going to be like I think it's like the last week in September, whatever the Sukkot week, September. I know there's a lot of dates for Sukkot, like there's people that got it in October, but the one I'm looking at is the calendar where it's like the 22nd or 23rd or something like that's when it begins. So I don't know if that's the last week or the 3rd week or whatever it is, but that's the week that we're looking to do something big, and we just want to pray for God's hand to be on that, and for divine appointments and everything to just work out and line up, and the funding and all that stuff. Other than that, that's all I can think of right now. I mean, I'm super busy. Hopefully Aaron's, little baby's, getting settled in so that we can and my life's hopefully getting straightened out so we can get back to the grind and start. I haven't posted nothing really on Facebook or even thought about making other videos or none of that stuff. So
yeah, I haven't had time to do much either. So
yeah, I've been kind of, God has got me in a season of like really just going local, like just getting into for a long time I've been online. The community's been online. I'm not moving away from that, but I'm being directed heavily into the local scene, like just tapping into things that are going on. Like the Dream Center is opening up in November, and I've been doing a lot of training for things like, for just all kinds of. They're just offering so much stuff, and it's going to be. I'll have to talk to you guys about that. Maybe we can get somebody on here to talk about that, the Dream Center that's opening up in Dayton, and what awesome resources are going to be available through that place. And I really feel like God is really put that place on my heart and like pinpointed it as something that I'm going to be heavily involved in. So I'm kind of, I don't want to say transitioning, but like kind of my focus has been on that stuff as opposed to making videos and putting them out here. And there's also some really cool opportunities that have come up that I'm looking into. There's a local TV network, like a Netflix streaming type thing for Dayton, Columbus, and Cincinnati. And it's trying to make people, the object is to make people engage in community. And like, instead of watching TV and becoming these huge super fans of people you'll never meet, or these characters that live in Hollywood that, you know what I mean, making these people famous, it's a local streaming service for your community to help build the community. You can do whatever you want, but it's like making local celebrities as opposed to, so there's an opportunity there for us to be able to get onto that network and actually teach scripture and things like that and do outreach in our community, as opposed to just putting it on YouTube and letting it get, censored and removed. So I'm looking at that, and I'm looking at, I'm just trying to make sense of what God's doing right now, because there's a lot that I'm having to like kind of filter through and figure out. So just pray for me on that. But yeah, it's been awesome having you on here, Matt. I'm really excited that we met up again yesterday and kind of set this thing in motion. So I'm looking forward to doing stuff with you. And if you didn't get a chance to watch, a couple weeks ago, we did a show with the Wegmans. That was a really cool episode too. Their story is awesome, and go check that out if you haven't seen it. The reason I bring it up is because the view count's kind of low, so maybe people aren't watching it, or maybe YouTube's lying. I don't know. But
it's hard to tell with YouTube.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. But go check that out. That episode's really good.
Okay, awesome.
All right. Well, thanks again, Matt Howard. And guys, make sure you check him out on Facebook. And he does Monday nights, sometime between 6 and 9. He usually keeps everybody updated when he's doing his, what was it called? It was like kitchen.
Christ's Kitchen.
Christ's Kitchen. Straight from the kitchen, straight from the heart. But yeah, he's got a great little thing he's got going on there, guys. And yeah, send him some friend requests, send him some encouragement, because he's, just getting started out. And guys, thank you for tuning in and sticking with us. I know we ran a little bit long, but we had a lot to talk about tonight. But we thank you guys, and we will see you again next week. God bless and keep you guys. Have a good night.
See ya.
Good night, guys.